So today's video is going to be a slight show and tell and a double feature. First film I'm going to talk probably a little bit less about. That is Radley Metzger's adaptation of Therese and Isabelle. So I did not know Radley Metzger as a filmmaker prior to this. He has an entire section at Videodrome where I rented this film. I don't think that I will want to watch any of his other films ever, because I really didn't like this film for multiple reasons, but the number one reason was that it was really boring. And that is just unforgivable in a film. So, and I also have just read this book. Like, I read the book and immediately went and rented the movie because I was, like, fascinated and I wanted to see. And I was expecting, like, I don't know, male gazy lesbian porn or something, and that's not even what I got. It was just they added a whole hour's worth of stuff that wasn't in the book. Everything that happens in the book gets left out except like one 5-minute sex scene in the movie and one scene where they go to an inn, and that's about it. Everything else in the movie isn't even from the book, or it's like they're like, oh, she mentions this character. Let's give you 30 minutes with this character that was mentioned once. They also inserted a dude just so that Therese can have sex with him. And I'm like, she's a lesbian. This is about a lesbian adolescence. You don't need to have sex with the dude to know that you're a lesbian. Like, what the fuck? So if you're interested in my detailed thoughts of this film, I definitely recommend checking out my Twitter thread, because that's the only way I got through this movie. I really hated it, and I just tweeted a lot. But I want to show you this, the book. This book is really good, and this lovely, here, can we read that? There we go. Is it long enough to read? Okay. This was put out by the Feminist Press, which is one of my favorite publishers. They've put out all of those, there's lesbian pulp, there's female noir, like Laura, Bunny Lake is Missing, all kinds of great mid-century literature from women, mostly American, but this is a new translation of this book. It's a great press, and all of their books a lot of these books are great books by women from the mid-century that got adapted into terrible films, or films that totally missed the point of the books. And so I recommend reading these books. The only Feminist Press book that I've read where I was like, the movie adaptation did it justice, was Now Voyager. But anyways, I'm glad I finally read the book. I cannot, under any circumstances, recommend the film. I just, Violette Leduc deserves so much better than this movie. It was not great. The next film I watched was a recommendation from someone on Twitter, actually. And it's the sequel to Carrie, kind of, called The Rage, Carrie 2. This was not a well-received film in 1999 when it came out. It was originally supposed to come out in 1996. It got delayed and delayed and delayed. It is fascinating for so many reasons, one of which is it was the main antagonists in the film were inspired by the where'd it go? I don't want to say this wrong, and now it's the spot that I had is gone. There it is. The Spur Posse, which was a huge scandal in early 90s California, and look them up, vomit a little bit, and then like raise your hand in the sky and shake. But also read. Joan Didion wrote an amazing essay. She was a sort of essayist journalist, and she wrote about it as it was happening, and probably the definitive account of these horrible teenage boys. But what's fascinating is they were trying to make this sort of relevant when it came out, but then it got delayed and delayed, and then finally it gets made into this film that really delves into both toxic masculinity, bullying, the ways in which boys are very, groups of boys can be very predatory, sexual harassment, sexual coercion, all kinds of things that we weren't really ready to talk about in 1999. There's even a scene, I put it on Twitter, go watch it, where one of the boys' dads is talking to the district attorney and the sheriff because they want to charge him with statutory rape because she was 16 and he was 18. This is the whole movie starts when a character played by Mina Suvari finds out that the guy that she's just lost her virginity to didn't really care about her. He was just trying to get points in their book point system, completely based from the real story about the Spur Posse. So she commits suicide, and then that causes the manifestation of Emily Burgle plays the main character, and her name is Rachel, her powers, based on this stress. So they're in this room, and they're talking about it, and basically the dad's like, he's on the football team. Scouts are coming. If you pull him off, the whole team will be messed up, and you'll mess up all the boys' careers. And the judge is like, or district attorney or whatever, is like, yeah, that sounds right. We don't have enough evidence to risk ruining all these teenage boys' futures. And it's like verbatim shit that we've heard repeated multiple times for the last 20 years. Like, it was shocking. I had to rewatch the scene a couple times, and like, did you have a time machine and go forward and see the defense that a lot of these asshole athlete dudes who rape people use as defense? Because it's the same shit over and over and over. And I know that we are in the midst of a debate about guns and all kinds of things right now, and there's all these people that are like, the guns aren't the problem, it's the people. All of this is altogether part of the culture that we're creating that causes male rage. All of it. The literally, it's all connected. It's just the male rage manifests itself in different ways. And in this case, it's through sexual coercion and rape. I have a lot of thoughts on this if you want to talk to me on Twitter about it, about how all of it is connected. Intersectionality. But that's kind of what this film follows. And then it follows a similar sort of, one of the guys, befriends her, and then all of the girls and dudes and everybody, get together to humiliate her, including making a sex tape without her permission, which is another thing that keeps happening to women. So, like, there's so much happening in this movie that is so ahead of its time and so not what we wanted to talk about in 1999. And all of that, I think, gets shadowed by people comparing it to the original film, which is like, just stop. They did the same thing to the Kimberly Pierce adaptation of Carrie, which is also brilliant. And then the very final finale is really, really gruesome, like way more gruesome than the original version. At one point, the worst dude, who is played by Zachary Ty Bryan, which you would remember from Home Alone if you were a kid, not Home Alone, Home Improvement if you were a kid who watched Home Improvement in the 90s. He gets, spoilers, he gets, like, castrated by a fishing spear, and it is awful and amazing all at the same time. I had to, like, rewind it a few times and be like, did that really happen? What else happens? It's really brutal ending. And it got me thinking about how, especially in the week that we're living through right now, how all of these films and the Carrie idea is all about the manifestation of female rage into mass killing. And yes, there's female rage is a real thing, but if the studies and the news tells me anything, female rage does not manifest in mass killing the same way that male rage does. And yet somehow these great horror stories are all about this female rage that, like, female rage manifests itself in a whole lot of ways, but mostly it manifests in self-harm way more than mass harm. And it's masculine rage and masculine entitlement that ends up causing mass harm in people. And I find it strange and fascinating that the opposite is what we see in these films, and very rarely do we see true depictions of adolescent rage as it's really manifested in this country through rejected men and all kinds of things. And it's all built together. It's all built on the same bullshit. So anyways, this is me saying, where did I put it? Rent this movie. It's much better than its reputation would have it seem. It is fascinating and top really tried to tackle issues that I don't think we were ready to talk about in 1999. If you remember 1999, this actually was released right before Columbine. This was about a month before Columbine and a month before we saw 19 years of the same shit over and over again. So think about that. Watch this film. Talk to me about it on Twitter. I'm always there.